Welcome back. The Investment Indaba aimed at discussing prescribed assets versus impact investing has just ended in Sandton in Johannesburg. Various investment specialists gathered to engage in a holistic debate about the practicality and possibility of sustainable investing. And to tell us more about this is Isaah Mhlanga, who is investment specialist at Alexander Forbes. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
Right. Firstly, give us a synopsis of some of the insights that came out at the Indaba.
I think if you look broadly at what the Indaba was trying to do is to say we do have significant lack of growth in the country. We have significant challenges in terms of unemployment, inequality. How does the financial sector help the country in terms of the investment so that it's not just financial returns for the investors, but also the returns to society in general in terms of trying to address some of the issues that we have. So that was the broader arcing message to say impact investing is a viable alternative to prescribed assets which can yield better returns both for society and for investors at the same time. These two things, which meaning the returns financially and returns for society, are not mutually exclusive. They can be obtained at the same time and benefiting both sides of the investment spectrum, meaning investors and society at the same time.
But then what's the feeling of the investment managers in as far as pursuing growth, on the other hand, policy that is envisaged to be, or having a possibility to be adopted, not speaking to their confidence, but rather policy not really generating confidence?
I think what we have seen over the past decade or so is a gradual erosion of business confidence, and that emanates largely from an unconducive policy environment, which means policies that are not conducive for businesses to be established, policies that are not conducive for investments to be deployed in the real economy in a way that will generate employment. And that has been quite consistent over the past 10 years. And what the investment community is looking for from the public sector is a policy framework that makes it much more predictable to say, if I invest capital in this project, there will be a positive return for the investors that invest or that save that capital for their retirement, which ultimately are you and me and many other people that work in corporate South Africa. But also to say it's not just government that has a responsibility of fixing South Africa's economic problems. It is government in collaboration with the private sector, with labor unions, that come together and say, this is what we are going to do in order to fix South Africa's problem using local capital that is ultimately South Africa's savings. So that is one of the main outcomes or points that have been debated quite robustly at the Investment Indaba.
So is the investment industry wary and suspicious of the intentions of the government to resuscitate the thought of these kind of investment policies, for example, this prescribed assets?
As far as prescribed assets are concerned, remember, if you are a trustee of a pension fund, you have a fiduciary duty to safeguard first and grow second the pension fund members' contributions so that they retire comfortably or with enough income. We also have a directive from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority which imposes those kind of requirements on pension fund trustee or board members. So from that perspective, anything that jeopardizes the investments of pension fund members will be ultimately be opposed. And as Alexander Forbes, I think we have mentioned this. We have put out the view to say anything that disadvantages our members, which is ultimately any other South African person who is working in corporate South Africa, as long as that policy directive is going to disadvantage them, we will be opposing that particular piece of legislation. But I think the second point also is to say government has not proven to be trustworthy in terms of big investments such that it can manage them on budget, on time. If you look at Medupi and Kosile, for instance, are one such examples. But it doesn't mean we don't have evidence of good delivery of projects. In the run-up of the 2010 World Cup, government delivered all stadiums which were big infrastructure spend on time and largely on budget, which means the capability is there. We just need the implementation to be much more robust and to on budget to ensure that we get the returns that we'll be putting in terms of members' contributions.
Have there been any various engagements at different levels with government regarding this policy?
I think at an industry level there has been previously, but since the debate on prescription came back into the limelight, there hasn't been a much robust debate. It's only now that that debate is starting to take place between the different role players. But obviously we need this debate to continue to carry on, given where the economy finds itself and the requirements in terms of capital that will be used to invest in different projects that can alleviate some of the problems that we have as a country.
So as an industry, you're speaking with one voice in opposing this kind of policy?
Yes, we have seen even the view from the Eskom Pension Fund. You have also seen the view from ASISA, which says prescription is going to negatively impact pension fund members. And it's not just a thought that comes from nowhere. We had prescription before. We have a historical precedent in what prescription resulted in terms of pension fund members' contributions. It was implemented in the early 1960s, ultimately abolished in 1989, after a study found that in terms of the returns, the assets which were prescribed could not even beat inflation, which means the disinvestment that has to be made from positive yielding assets into the prescribed assets, there was an opportunity cost that would have incurred by pension fund members, in the sense that you would disinvest from equities or bonds that give you a positive return. You invest in the prescribed assets, which if you look currently, it looks as if it will be state-owned companies, which currently we know they have positive return on, they have negative return on equity, which means there is a precedent. So based on that precedent and based on what we have observed over the past 10 years, it almost looks as if these are the same type of assets that will be forced to invest in, which currently do not yield positive returns. They continuously require government bailouts because they can't function independently without support.
Right. Well, Isaah, we've run out of time, but it would have been interesting to hear if the industry is able to speak with one voice regarding opposing a certain policy position. Would they also speak with one voice when it comes to transformation regarding the asset management industry and the benefit thereof of black asset managers, especially now that it's white dominated and there seems to be no movement, even an inch at all, regarding making sure that they have a larger share in the pie? But can we talk about this in our next discussion regarding your views as a black asset manager regarding transformation in this space, when you are gathered with white asset managers under the same roof to speak with one voice, but yet when there is a problem that is under the carpet? Can we do that?
Absolutely, but very quickly, I think there has been a transformation. It has been slow. The question is whether how fast can it be done, but also in terms of opposing prescription, we're not just opposing, we're suggesting an alternative, which is impact investing, which is what the conference has been talking about.
Let's
today.
do that so that we get to understand why is there a contradiction. One voice only when it's one topic, but different voices when everybody has to benefit. All right, thank you very much for making time.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. Well, indeed, transformation has to be discussed if the asset managers of the country can meet and talk about the problems in their industries. But we will continue with this discussion. Isaah Mhlanga is investment specialist at Alexander Forbes. And of course, we take a break.